You're listening to the weekly Dartscast. 180!
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast. Alex Moss here, back as always with my co-host, Darts Statistician. I've got to mention as well his NFL team were beaten by our producer Hannah's team this week. Burton, DeWitt, how are you doing?
We're so bad it's hard to call us a team, but if you had to get that in for Hannah, I'm glad you did. I'm doing all right. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing well, thank you. And we've got two great guests coming on a little bit later on. You can hear from Fallon Sherrock, or I should give her proper title, the Queen of the Palace. And you're also going to hear from a former world champion, Scott Mitchell. Two great chats with them coming up in a little bit. But let's talk a little bit about the World Grand Prix. It started on Tuesday. We're 2 days into the tournament now. A new record set for most seeds to lose in the first round of the World Grand Prix. 6 players falling at the first hurdle over the last 2 nights. What do you make of so many big names bowing out early in Coventry?
I mean, there's a few different things that I think contributed to it. And each of those matches had a different factor that went into it. But even the 2 seeds who went through, Michael van Gerwen had to survive a last leg decider, had to take out a 103 checkout in the last set. Otherwise, he was probably going to go out in either 3-0 or 3-1 in that final set, because Ratajski was playing well, missed a couple darts at double to get Lau van Gerwen to break back, and ended up winning it in a last leg decider. And then Gerwen Price didn't seem to be clicking, but Jermaine Watamana just had trouble getting away in deciding legs of sets. Looked like he had the first set, looked like he had every chance in the second set, but couldn't get away when throwing for it. Those are the only 2 seeds that get through, and both of them could say they're fortunate. But you look at the other 6, it's a mix of factors. Peter Wright just ran into a machine in Ryan Joyce. Ryan Joyce was flawless. Okay, Wright didn't play perfect, but the average is a bit misleading because he got whitewashed in one leg. You take that out. It wasn't a terrible performance by Peter Wright, but it was a world-class performance even by Ryan Joyce, averaging nearly 100 into the last couple legs. And then you also have performances, though, where players just didn't show up. James Wade, I don't know what that was. Rob Cross, just continuing what's really been a struggle of a year for him. But I think it was different factors that led to it. But I think also just the weirdness of this event. The schedule this year has been so hectic. Not in the normal way that it's event after event, but in the we don't know when the next event's going to be, that it had to have been affecting the preparation. There are some players, not even just the seeds, but unseeded players who just look like they hadn't played in months. But then there are also some players who played better than we've seen them play in a long, long time. I think just this year has led to anything is possible, but it's also a credit to the depth in the game. When you're having players like Ryan Joyce go out and throw like that, and it's not that surprising that he throws like that, it does tell you just how deep the field is as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. And I was going to mention as well, we've seen 6 of the 8 seeds fall in the first hurdle this first round over the last couple of days. But as you quite rightly said, it could easily have been all 8 seeds going out. Michael van Gerwen, very close to losing to Christoph Ratajski, the tip that I did last week, which unfortunately just fell at the last bit there in that final leg. And Gerwen Price, as you mentioned, the scoreline looks a little bit one-sided, but both the sets going 3-2 and could have really gone either way in those deciding legs. So those are the 2 seeds to go through. But the other 6, yeah, I think there is a variety of factors, and some of them more surprising than others. Of course, you've got to say on paper going into this tournament, Peter Wright going out to Ryan Joyce is a big shock. But when you look at that performance from Ryan Joyce, and got it down here, 9 out of 13 on the doubles to start, he was, well, to use his nickname, relentless on that double 16, very rarely missed it. And that is how important this format is, especially in this first round, which you've probably heard it a lot over the commentary over the last couple of days. It's a brutal format, first to 2 sets. And with that double start, which, of course, as we know, this is the only tournament on the calendar, PDC-wise, that these guys get to play in with that double start, it is very different. And especially when your opponent's going off with that double, then maybe chucking in a treble or 2 trebles you've not got off. And Peter Wright getting brushed tonight when we're talking by Ryan Joyce, it's something that you don't expect to see a world champion get brushed. So yeah, that was probably the biggest surprising one. Maybe Daryl Gurney was the next surprising, I'd say, given that he's had so much stage time over the last couple of months. He's had got some decent results in that Premier League restart, and was decent on the World Series finals and European Tour, picking up a few wins. So those were probably the 2 most surprising. But again, as you touched on there was a few players that we probably were expecting to fall in that first round, Rob Cross being one of them as well, and Mervyn King against James Wade. I know I tipped James Wade to get through in that one, but Mervyn King was coming into this into some good form. And as you heard on our last show on Monday when we spoke to Mervyn King, he was feeling confident about his game, and he said at the end of the interview this could potentially be the week. Well, Monday, if he gets to the final, could be the time that he gets that first PDC major, and he's ticked off one of the first hurdles to overcome this week.
Yes, indeed. But of course, there are more hurdles to come. Seeds are out. There are still 2 left, and they're 2 of the top 3 players in the world. Michael van Gerwen, the number 1 player in the top half. Gerwen Price, the number 3 ranked player in the world in the bottom half. Is it straightforward now for them that we'll see them battle out another TV final come next Monday night?
I don't think it is at the moment, and they've got to win 3 more games each to get through to that final next week. But I was looking back today to see when the last time we had so many seeds fall in the World Grand Prix, and as we mentioned at the top of the show, this is now a record 6 of the 8 going. But the previous best, 2016, that was 5 players falling in that first round, and you can kind of get some similarities really. Michael van Gerwen, of course, was one of those 3 seeds to get through, and all of his seeds in that top half went out, like this year as well. And in the bottom half, you had 2 and 3 of the seeds, Gary Anderson, Adrian Lewis, both getting through, and the third seed Gerwen Price coming through on this occasion, but it was 2 of those top seeds getting through to the final, Van Gerwen and Gary Anderson. So if you're looking for some similarities really to what's happened last time, we've seen quite a lot of the seeds go early, then perhaps that could happen. But I think looking at what we've got really to come over the next few days, it's going to be difficult to see with any certainty that these 2 get through to the final. And I suppose it's probably funny saying it, but I think if you had to side with one of the 2 to get through to the final, and I know he didn't play very well in his game tonight when we're talking against Jermaine Watamina, but probably say Gerwen Price has probably got the better chance of getting through to the final. And I say that because the players that Michael van Gerwen's going to come up against over the next few days, if he gets that far, are players that are coming into this with some confidence, and with confidence of beating Michael in recent weeks. Devon Peterson, the man in form he's got next in the second round, then it's either going to be Mervyn King or Simon Whitlock. Both of those 2 players have beaten him on a stage this year. And then if we get further on, if we get into the semi-finals, Dimitri van der Berg, a player that we spoke about last week, didn't really fancy him to do too well this week, but he's put in a very good performance in that first round, and he enjoys playing on that stage without a crowd, it seems. He's a world match play champion behind closed doors. And then, of course, you've got Gary Anderson in there as well, who's a proven winner as well. So I don't think it's straightforward at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's straightforward. It absolutely could be. Gerwen Price was my pre-tournament tip, and he didn't give me any reason to keep that tip, but he also didn't give me any reason to move away from it. First match, you can't read too much into it. If you read too much into the first match, you could have said Peter Wright was finished at the World Championships back in December. Well, he wasn't. He ended up going on and winning the title. But also in the other direction, you can't read too much into a great performance, because that's the best we've seen from Michael van Gerwen in a ranking TV match in some time. He played nearly flawlessly, which is also a credit to Christopher Tyskie, that you can say Van Gerwen had to take out 103 to save the match, and even still, Van Gerwen played fantastically. So it's a credit to Christopher Tyskie that he nearly won a match against the on-point Van Gerwen. But it does get tougher from here, especially for Van Gerwen. He's going against one of the, if not the form player in World Darts, Devon Peterson, who we've talked a lot about recently. And then if he gets past that, he either has Mervyn King, who threw back the years against James Wade, or Simon Whitlock, who put in his highest ever performance in this tournament, averaging over 100 and just demolishing Chris Dobie, and seems to be playing with a little bit of freedom after not qualifying per se to this event, having to get in through the withdrawal of Adrian Lewis due to a positive COVID-19 test. That's a potential banana skin if Van Gerwen even gets that far. And you mentioned who potentially waits in the semifinals. Dimitri van der Berg, Gary Anderson, Danny Knopper, the most underrated player in World Darts, is a lot of people who can stop Van Gerwen. And Van Gerwen has not given us any reason to believe he can duplicate what he did in that match. We've seen performances like that from him this entire year, but he hasn't been able to back them up. He needs to back them up because he doesn't have a breath over the next few matches. And if he doesn't back it up, then he's going out next round. And even if he does back it up next round, if he doesn't the following one, his tournament comes to the end in the quarterfinals. Gerwen Price, I agree, it's easier in the bottom half for him. That said, Kim Huybrechts played one of his best TV matches in a while, and the potential semifinal against Dave Chisnall, who had the highest average in the first round, averaging nearly 103 in just demolishing Glenn Dorrant. If he plays like that, Gerwen Price has almost no chance in that match, granted. Dave Chisnall's another player like Van Gerwen who hasn't been able to back up performances this year. So you think Gerwen Price has the better chance of those two, but it's definitely not a cakewalk for either of them. And we could see both of them go out in the second round on Thursday and Friday.
Now move on to our first guest on this week's show, and it is with the Queen of the Palace, Fallon Sherrock. I'm delighted to be joined by the history maker herself, Fallon Sherrock. Thank you very much for the time, Fallon. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing all right. I'm doing the best that I can do, as anyone else is at the moment.
Well, we last had you on the show in the summer of last year, so we've got to start with a look back at your achievements at Alexandra Palace last December, almost a year ago now, would you believe? What memories come to mind when it's brought up to you now?
Yeah, I kind of forget how long ago it was now, because to me it still feels like, it's only around last week or something. But yeah, looking back on it, it's like, it amazes me of the whole impact and everything like that, and the memories I get from it, the whole crowd atmosphere, the games that we're playing, how the world reacted. They're memories that I'm never going to forget. So yeah, I mean, it's still I still can't believe that I was the one that done all of this, and I've lived all through that. And now when I watch it back, it's like, oh, I really did do that. It's still a bit disbelievable at some point.
Going back to the qualifier that you won through, you beat some top players, the likes of Lorraine Winstanley, Lisa Ashton on the way. What were those 3 weeks or so like in the lead up to making your debut at Ali Pali? Were you excited, nervous, mixture of both?
Kind of like a mixture of both, because I remember being at the playoff, and I was actually with Lorraine that morning, and we were so nervous before even going to the venue, and we were talking to each other, trying to calm ourselves down. And then when we got there, we were like, okay, right, let's just get our heads on and all that. So I still remember all of that, and I still remember qualifying, and I was just on cloud nine. Literally, I couldn't speak. I think after it, I sat in the car park, and we didn't move for about half an hour because we were just so excited. And then the lead up to the World Championships, I was just so excited and couldn't wait. And then I started to get a bit nervous, because I'd never played on a big stage like that, and I'd never, played in front of a massive crowd, and I didn't know what to expect. And I remember actually messaging Lisa, asking what it was like, and just trying to get an idea of what it was like and all of that. And then I still remember when I got there, I was amazed with the atmosphere and all of that. And actually, before playing my first game, I remember being in the back with Ted, and we were just having a little chat and a laugh before actually going out on stage. And I think that kind of helped me, kind of chill out a little bit and just enjoy it a lot more.
Definitely, and the date, December 17th, 2019, will go down in history in darts. That was the night that you beat Ted Everts to become the first female to win a match at the PDC World Championship. What was that moment like when the double 18 goes in and you have made history?
Well, actually, at the time, when it went in, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, cheer. I was just amazed, because I was just filled with all this emotion. I didn't really know how to express it all. And then, obviously, like I said, all the impact afterwards, I was in disbelief about everything that was going on. I was just it's just a couple of interviews, and I didn't realise how big it was. And I still had to then play my next game, and I still remember I was just filled with so much emotion. I literally, still to this, still now, I sit there and question how I actually felt, because I was just filled with happiness, and then loads of different other emotions. I'm I can't pinpoint how it actually felt.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because that win, of course, sparked a media frenzy, which darts not often sees. Lots of interviews, as you mentioned, on TV, radio, nationally and globally. That the win reached all corners of the globe. How did you try and cope with all of that, whilst also trying to focus on your next match against Mensa, which was only, I think, 4 days later?
I don't really know, because I kind of just got thrown in. Literally, after I'd done all the interviews in the press room, we got back to the hotel, and then I think I had a couple of hours sleep, and then I was up at like Good Morning Britain, and I was like, oh, okay, like this is fun, I'm going to enjoy this. And I was literally thrown in the deep end because it was literally like one interview after the other. I didn't really get time for like a break or anything, so I was kind of just winging it all really, and it was like a blur. Like the whole day to me now is a blur because I was just getting like thrown from one interview to the next. So I think I was just running with it. I don't think I was like, I think I coped with it quite well because I was just like, well, they're asking me the same question. So I'm just kind of trying to answer it. But I think it helped me in the long run because I think now I feel more comfortable doing interviews by when I got thrown in the deep end like that. Because beforehand, if anyone had asked me a question, I'd be like, yeah, no. But it was like washing paint dry, like it was painful.
Well, the historic run obviously continued. You put out Mensah Suljovic in the next round, and unfortunately you got to Chris Dobie, a close game in the next round. When you look back on those last 2 weeks, the wins, of course, will obviously stand out. The interviews, the big ones like Good Morning Britain, things like that. What would you say was the most surreal moment of it all?
I don't really know. I mean, I can't pinpoint one specific like thing that made it all surreal because, like I said, like I had to do all these interviews. I mean, the fact that I was on Good Morning Britain, I was like, oh my god, I watch that every morning when I'm getting my little boy ready for school. So for me, I was like, wow. And but I was also on like other like morning shows and radios that I was like, there is no way how someone like me would ever get on this. So I was like, wow, like this is incredible. But then obviously I then had to like prepare and stuff for like the next games and stuff, so I was like more concentrated in the games and stuff like that. But looking back on it, I'm so proud of like all the games and that I played and stuff. And I think my proudest moment was obviously when I beat Ted when it hit the double. But then obviously Mensah was a really big game for me as well because he was like number 11 in the world, and I mean, to take out number 11 in the world is just incredible. So, I mean, the whole experience, I can't really pinpoint one specific thing because everything was just made it for real.
That's fair enough. Well, let's move on into this year then. And we were hoping to see you appear in another World Championship at the start of the year over in the BDO, the women's event at the O2, but a few days before you decided to withdraw from the event. Why was that?
I think, like, looking back on it now, it was just the broken promises and stuff, and I was just like, they weren't like, I was asking questions but I weren't really getting any answers and all that. And it was when they dropped the prize money originally because they were like, we can't promise it, and I was like, why am I going to go play in a championship that they're not going to, like, I might not get anything at the end of it. And I've worked so like long all year to try and, yes, I wanted to win the world, like obviously win it, but obviously the money helps as well because of all the financial side to getting there throughout the year. So I was just like, I can't, like, it's not like, I don't really know, to be fair. I mean, I personally, it just kind of killed it for me because of everything that I'd just done, and it was like a blow for me, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, can obviously tell it was a really hard decision for you to make, and you touched on a few points there. There was a lot of uncertainty around the event with the prize fund and other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, and it got to a point where I was like, is it going to happen? Because it was just so up in the air, and I was like, I was literally gutted.
Looking back at it now, though, obviously turns out to be that was the last BDO World Championship. The BDO is unfortunately no longer anymore. But looking back now, are you maybe slightly disappointed you didn't try and enter and become a BDO Women's World Champion because you got to a final before, and obviously you've had some great times in that tournament?
Yeah, I mean, obviously looking back at it now, I'm sitting thinking, yeah, okay, maybe I should have, just played, and even if I didn't win anything money-wise, just played in a bit. But at the time, I thought there was going to be another World Championship. I never thought it'd be, the last one. But I suppose there's going to be other opportunities open up. There will be another Women's World Championship or the overall World Championships like the PDC does. So it's just going to have to be it's going to be harder now, but I'm still determined to win a World Championship, whichever way it is.
Moving away then from the BDO, you were back at Q School in January, and although you didn't get a tour card, you compare the averages from when you went there 2019 to this year, you can see how your game has improved. How did you reflect on the Q School this year?
I think Q Q school helped me just purely because, like you said, the averages had improved from previous year, but it also helped with my stamina, because obviously it was 4 days of just early start, and then obviously how many games you play and all that, and it helped me throughout the exhibitions and all of that stuff that I was doing, because obviously where I was playing so much, I was building up the momentum to play and the stamina to do it all, whereas before it was I'd hit a brick wall. But it helped me as well in the competitions as well, because I was used to, I was getting used to playing so often. The more games I was playing, the more games I was playing, at a better standard than when previously when I was playing, I'd have a good game and then I'd have 1 or 2 bad games because my stamina had dropped.
And before the virus shut everything down, we of course saw you in the Premier League as one of the challengers. We also saw you in the UK Open. You won through one of the Riley's qualifiers. How did you find playing in those events for the first time as well?
Yeah, I really enjoyed them events. The Premier League was just an amazing experience because I got to play Glenn, and obviously, well, you can see how well Glenn's been doing in the Premier League now and how good of a player he's got, and the fact that I drew with someone of that good ability is it's such an achievement in myself that I'm so proud of myself. But yeah, the whole atmosphere of the Premier League was just insane, and the fact that I got the privilege to do that, I was just so proud of myself. And then obviously going to the Riley's qualifier, going back to the Q school bit, the stamina at Q school helped me with the Riley's qualifier because it was such a long day, and obviously you had to play at a good standard to get through. But then obviously when I got to the UK Open, granted it didn't go with the result that I wanted, but it was still a great experience. I mean, I got to play the UK Open, and there was only a couple of women who had actually done that before. So you had me and Lisa that were there this year, but then I think Beat has played before, and Anna, and it was I've been part of history in that in that way, to get what I mean. So I was just so proud of myself and everything, and experiencing all these big games on the stage and all the atmosphere and the crowd is just amazing experiences.
Definitely. And after that there was a bit of a break for everyone really, and I was chatting to my co-host on our show Burton last week, and we said about the players that have missed out the most this year through exhibitions and invites, yourself, Wayne Warren, Raymond van Barneveld. How did you stay motivated when things were being cancelled early on in the lockdown?
I just, to be honest, the way that I just stayed motivated, I just thought, eventually things will get back to normal. I don't know if it's going to be, next year or the year after or a few months. I didn't know. So I was just playing in the Modus League, and I was okay, right, I'm just going to carry on playing. I'm going to try and keep the standard up and just kind of keep myself busy and not get disheartened with, all the exhibitions that I've lost, all these opportunities I've lost, because eventually I will get them back. They aren't gone, they've just kind of been postponed because, when a global pandemic hits, there's nothing much they can do. I mean, you can't do anything about it, and I mean, it's out of everyone's hands. So it was just I just kind of had to accept what was going on and just kind of keep myself occupied and still practice and, keep myself busy by playing on the online stuff. Yeah,
we saw a lot of you in the Modus Online League during the lockdown, and then of course last month back on our screens for the World Series finals, the first event back with a crowd. The result obviously didn't go your way on that night, but how much did you enjoy playing on that big stage again?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was just really good just to get back to playing with someone in front of me, when they're playing on the hockey, and being on the big stage and having the referees, and we had a little crowd, and it was just really nice just to be back playing in a big event like that. But yeah, obviously the score line didn't go my way or anything like that, but I still enjoyed the game. I mean, I still enjoy every game that I play regardless of what the result is. But yeah, I think obviously with that game as well, I think after the break and then coming back and the lack of match practice, I think because obviously no one's played any darts or anything like that, and I definitely haven't been anywhere to play darts against anyone. That's where I lacked in it, but in fairness, Jeff was played mint towards the end and stuff, and I was just happy that I could keep up with him.
Let's have a look ahead then, and it's going to be a busy couple of weekends coming up for you. The Challenge Tour this weekend, and then next week you've got the Grand Slam qualifier, the Women's Series as well. Just on the Women's Series, what was your reaction when you saw that was announced?
Oh, I was so happy about that, because literally that is was all that I wanted to do, was just kind of put the women's game out there. So obviously with everything that was going on in like Christmas time and start of the years and stuff, every time that I had like an interview or something, I was like, we need more opportunities. So I was like basically, you know, sitting there asking for more opportunities. And when the opportunities now come up, I was just like, well, how I guess like we're finally getting the recognition that we need, because like I said, like everyone can play really good darts, we can all kind of beat the men and all of that. We just need more opportunities to prove it. So obviously when this all come up, honestly, I was so happy. And I mean, I had like Lorraine and Corinne and Anna, and they were all just like, this is amazing. And it is an amazing experience and stuff. And I just hope that all the women obviously can get behind it, support it, and then hopefully more can come out of it.
Absolutely, yes. It's great to see that the PDC as well, they're putting up a prize fund for these Women's Series events, which are going to go towards qualifying for the 2 available spots for the World Championship. But for the ladies' game, would you like to see that extended maybe to more weekends and a possible ladies' tour from the PDC? Or do you think ladies like yourself and Lisa, the main target really should be pursuing the Challenge Tour Q School and focusing on getting a tour card like Lisa has?
Yeah, so I think obviously like the target is to get a tour card and get onto the Pro Tour like Lisa has, because I mean that's a great achievement like in itself, and obviously that's what we all inspire to do. But obviously where there's nothing confident women at the moment, like literally like no one knows what's going to happen with like competition wise, this is literally the only thing we've got at the moment. So I'm hoping obviously if we can all show how we can play and obviously, you know, put the support around it, hopefully, you know, I'm not saying, you know, create like a women's world championship, because I feel, you know, if we can beat them, then why not play on like beside them? Like, why have we got to, you know, have our own one when we can beat them and show the world what we can do? But I mean, more competitions or more like weekends maybe, because I think that's what the ladies' game needs. I think we need more competition, but also we need like more, do you know, like when you play like more legs, because obviously the women's game's always been like best of 7 or something like that. So we're not used to playing like the longer formats, whereas obviously like the Pro Tour holders and all that, they play the longer formats. And I think that's the only way like the women's game's going to improve a bit more now, because we have more opportunities like that, more weekends, more formats to just boost the game, like just to push it further now.
Fingers crossed for that. And lastly, before we let you go, we should also give a mention away from the PDC to the WDF and the Virtual Cup. Yourself and Lorraine partnering up to represent England. Talk to us a little bit about that and when we can expect to follow your games.
Yeah, so that's a big surprise for me, because I didn't know how they were going to do anything like that. Obviously, like it's really great to be picked from my country, obviously, to play. I know it's only online, but it's still I get to play against people from the other like countries and stuff from my own home, so that's incredible. So yeah, I get to play with Lorraine, and I mean, I can like she's awesome anyway. So I'm hoping obviously we can put like a good standard out, and hopefully get through and, you know, make England proud and all of that. But yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I've scheduled my games for Wednesday the 7th and Monday the 12th at the moment. Obviously, I'm trying to like wean into more games, but obviously it's a busy schedule towards the next 2 weeks for me, obviously with the Challenge Tour and the women's, and so we've got to, you know, kind of fit in where we can. I think England's going to like stream some of the games as well, so hopefully people get to watch them, and, you know, hopefully we can get the results.
Excellent. Well, wish yourself and Lorraine all the best with that, and wish yourself as well all the best with the Challenge Tour this weekend and the Women's Series next weekend, and thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Fallon for joining us, and if you've been living under a rock for the last couple of days and you were hearing the name Simon Whitlock mentioned during that first part of the show talking about the World Grand Prix, well, yes, he is in the field for this year's World Grand Prix, and that is because just before the start of the tournament, Adrian Lewis and Stephen Bunting unfortunately both testing positive for the coronavirus and replaced in the field by Simon Whitlock. And when we're recording this show at the moment, he's playing Jeffrey Desvan is in the field as well. First time we've really seen this happen in the darts, of course, since this virus came about. Could this be a worrying sign of things to come, maybe?
We had to know that this would have been coming eventually. We didn't know who, we didn't know when, but it was eventually going to happen that a player was going to have to pull out of an event due to a positive COVID test, especially with numbers increasing almost everywhere in the world right now. It's difficult because, of course, we don't know what Adrian Lewis or Stephen Bunting have been doing in the past couple weeks that led to a positive test. But it's very likely that it was through no fault of their own. Just traveling to the event creates a strong risk that you can contract the disease because it's airborne. So you could take every precaution and still run a realistic chance that you're going to show up and be positive and have to withdraw. There's no sign that that's going to change anytime soon. The one thing that's helpful is that we do have this instant testing now, which means that you can find out quicker that you have something, and therefore contact testing or contact tracing, I should say, is a lot simpler. And when you do have events back to back to back, like the PDC have been trying to do, you can create that bubble and get the players in that bubble early enough that, okay, there might be some that test positive and have to withdraw, but you avoid the risk of a major outbreak, and you avoid the risk that a player will have to pull out on the eve of a major event like this. But it will happen again, and it's tough to see how it will be completely avoided until there is a vaccine, until that vaccine is widely available. It sucks, and there's no way around it for Stephen Bunting and Adrian Lewis. Adrian Lewis now going to drop out of the top 16. Stephen Bunting did a great job to get himself into this field after missing out on the World Match Play for the first time in his PDC career. Now he misses out, probably through no fault of his own, on the World Grand Prix, and that will affect both of these players' rankings going forward. But it will, next event, once they have that negative test, they will be back, and it could be someone else who misses out, or maybe they'll get in one day through it. And players have missed through other reasons before, whether it be injury, Gary Anderson pulling out of this event a couple years ago, whether it be the UK Open a couple years ago due to the snowstorm, an ice storm, or whatever you want to call it. So it does happen, but yeah, I think it will happen again, and you just have to prepare and have players on standby ready to go.
Yeah, it really was a shame. Obviously, when this news came out, there's a few rumours doing the rounds on social media on Tuesday afternoon, and then I think it was about an hour and a half before the tournament was due to start at 6 o'clock, around about 4:30, the news came out from the PDC that unfortunately Adrian and Stephen both tested positive for the virus, and we've got to send our best wishes to both of them. And both of them have come out on Twitter in the last day or so and said that they're obviously both gutted about the news, but they've both said that they've not got any symptoms or anything like that, so hopefully they'll be able to make a full recovery. But yeah, I suppose really looking back now, it probably was only a matter of time before this happened. And you mentioned about the cases going up in the UK at the moment, and it's not like other sports. It's happened to them, I think, quite recently in the football with Liverpool's Sadio Mane, one of their top players, testing positive for the virus, which meant he missed their game at the weekend, which I think was a big loss in the end, considering the result they had. But yeah, and I suppose this is why we do the test, don't we? Even if players turn up to these events with no symptoms and they test positive for it, if they wouldn't have had the test, they'd have carried on playing and could have spread the virus without knowing. So it's good that they're still doing these tests like that. And as you say, it could have been any of the 32 players. We could have gone into this tournament with Michael van Gerwen and Peter Wright both testing positive for it, and both of them would have been kicked out of the tournament. And I suppose really it's going to be interesting really going forward with this busy end to the year. If players are testing positive, how long they're going to have to sit out with the quarantine and the self-isolation. I mean, if it would have been, say, Peter Wright, for example, would he have not been able to play the Premier League playoffs next week? Would that self-isolation period have carried into the playoffs? I'm not quite sure, but yeah, it will be interesting to see how this plays out over the next few months, because you'd have to be very lucky really to go through the next few months with all these events and all the travelling that's going to be involved for players not to be unfortunate like Adrian and Stephen and test positive for it. And next couple of weekends as well, I've got to give a mention, we've got the Challenge Tour and the Women's Series that we're going to talk about, and there's no testing going on involved with these events, and you've got a lot more players involved in a lot closer proximity. I know the Development Tour the other weekend went off without a hitch. It looks like there was no cases come from that, so fingers crossed, the PDC have got everything under control in that respect, and we won't see any more things like this happen again.
Now, we didn't talk this past weekend about the Challenge Tour because we were hoping and planning, and turns out we are having an episode in the middle of the week, in the middle of the World Grand Prix. So we'll talk about the Challenge Tour now. It's been a long time since the first weekend back in early February. Currently, Scott Mitchell tops the order of merit, but it's very tight between the four people who won on the first weekend. Robert Collins, Matthew Dennett, and Jitse van der Waal, all within 150 pounds of Mitchell at the top. Other players a little bit further back. And it's going to finish this weekend with 6 events over 3 days, in Barnsley. Who do you see as the main contenders, though, to finish in the top 2 spots and win a tour card next year in the PDC?
Yeah, it is very tight. I was looking at the order of merit earlier today as well, and we spoke a couple of weeks ago when we looked ahead to the development tour. We had a question come in from one of our listeners who should be the players to watch out for, and we both said it's going to be quite difficult really to judge too much on the form from the first 4 events way back at the start of the year coming into this weekend, because there's been such a long break. So really you can only go off what players we have seen involved, and a couple of players I've got to give a mention to. Eddie Lovely, who's played 3 Players Championships so far this year, played the first event in the summer series and then unfortunately had to pull out, I think, due to personal problems. And the only day that he did play in that series got to a last 16, and he was putting in some decent averages. Andrew Gilden as well, it will be nice to see him back on the tour. Of course, he's playing on the Challenge Tour at the moment. We've seen a lot of him still on the Pro Tour, getting the invites to play the Players Championship events, and currently 33rd on the list of averages on the Players Championship. So he's competing amongst the top players. And you even go back to the Autumn Series, I know he didn't get past the second round on any of the 5 days, but 2 of those 5 days he lost with 100 plus average to Gerwen Price and Devon Peterson, and general consensus those are 2 of the best, maybe top 8 players in the world at the moment. So he's been a little bit unlucky with the draw. So I'll give those 2 a mention, but it's going to be very tight. The top 4, we had 4 different winners on that first weekend. They're all separated by £150, 6 events, even players that didn't play that first weekend. You just heard from Fallon Sherrock, she didn't play that first weekend. She's playing this weekend. All she's got to do is win an event. I know it's difficult for all these players. It is a tough school, the Challenge Tour, but win an event on that first day and you are right in the mix going into those final 2 days to potentially win one of those 2 tour cards. So I think there's a lot of players going there this weekend that will fancy their chances, and it'll open up a lot of doors, not just to get that tour card, but of course if you finish top, get into the World Championship, and if you finish high enough on that list, you've got the Winter Series coming up. There'll probably be some places for Challenge Tour players to get an invite for that. So in terms of importance for players that aren't in that tour card list at the moment, this is a huge weekend for a lot of players.
Yeah, like how you said it, all you have to do is win an event. Such an easy thing to do. But yeah, I mean, that is, though, the thing. If you win an event, you're right, especially on the Friday, you're right there with every chance of being in the top 2 at the end. Because, well, it's £2,000, and right now first place is £2,200. So you win an event, even if you didn't play the first weekend, you're back in it. You're still not obviously there because there are still 5 events after that, and each event has a £2,000 first prize, £1,000 for runner-ups. If you finish runner-up in a few of these, you'll start climbing as well. But I'm going to have to echo some of those names you said. I was going to start by throwing out Andrew Gilding because he has been playing well. You know, he's played well when we've seen him on the Pro Tour the last few years since losing his tour card, but he hasn't been able to duplicate it in the Challenge Tour. He hasn't been able to really duplicate it in Q School, which is why he remains on the Challenge Tour. He did make a final that first weekend, so he's right there in the race to get those tour cards and, of course, to get that Alley Pally spot. He just needs to put it together for 3 days. I think he has every chance to do it because when we have seen him, he's been playing well. But you also made another good point that I was going to make, where for most of these players, we haven't seen them. Some of them have played online events. Obviously, they've been playing local and other events, or not. I shouldn't say obviously, but many of them have been, or trying to find ways to when the opportunity arises. But most of them we don't know. We really don't know what kind of form they've been in because we haven't seen them in so long. Scott Mitchell, though, because he's been top, he's been playing the Pro Tour, and he's done a good job his first year playing PDC darts. But I don't know. There's a lot to play for, but like for the Development Tour a couple weeks ago, I just don't know because we haven't seen these players.
Let's hear from one of those players then that is looking to get that tour card this weekend on the Challenge Tour. Here's our chat with the former world champion, Scott Mitchell. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the former world champion, Scott Mitchell. Thanks very much for your time, Scott. How are you doing?
No, good. A bit wet this morning. It was a bit rainy this morning, but yeah, no, we're back in the dart life now. So yeah, it's all good.
Excellent. Well, we last had you on back in early February of this year, and a lot's obviously gone on in the 6 or 7 months since then. But for yourself, the first big milestone really was getting on the Pro Tour a few days later after we spoke and getting a certain Michael van Gerwen in the draw for your first game. What was your reaction when you saw that draw?
Yeah, I think my reaction was the same as everybody in the room, because obviously it was game 1, board 1, streaming board 1, and it was the first game called out. So Michael van Gerwen versus Scott Mitchell, and I think everybody in the room had a little chuckle. But it's a baptism of fire. We know it's a different animal over there, and Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was ironic in that game. I actually shot out the 2 legs that I beat him, that I got off him, and a 6-2 loss was a 170 check out and a double one. So, yeah, you couldn't have had more adverse if you tried.
Well, before the tour and everything else went into lockdown, you did have a good run of getting into Players' Championships based on how well you did on that first weekend on the Challenge Tour. So how did you find it turning up to the Pro Tours and playing against the best players in the world?
It was exciting. It was a very different bunch of people, but at the same time, it's not a bunch of people that I didn't know. I have so many friends over there anyway from their video days. And they, the John Hendersons and all those sorts of people that, and obviously more recently Dozer. So it wasn't a difficult transition really. It was just a case of me trying to make not more of it than it actually was. I think sometimes you can make the wrong sort of mental attitude towards it, thinking you've got to play so much better and this, that and the other, and you've just got to get your game out there because that's why you're there, because you're good enough. So yeah, it took me a couple of the first Pro Tours to get that round in my head, not to make more of it, and I think I've kind of done that. And I've really enjoyed it. I've got to be honest, I really enjoyed it.
And when March came around, obviously everything went into lockdown. There was no darts, no tour to play on for a good 4 months or so. What was it like for you then? No darts and not having the travelling. How did you find that break?
I was one of the lucky ones, if I'm honest, because the Modus Icons League came into play for me, and I was playing at home and playing 2 or 3 times a week. So I didn't have the downtime that maybe some of the others had. Not ideal playing at home. Everybody thinks, you want to see what I do when I play at home, you want to see my practice. Well, we kind of saw it. Some of the guys really loved playing at home, and some of the guys, it didn't quite suit them. For me, I was sort of like working at the same time, so it was a case of getting my work done in the morning before the 3 or 4 games during the day, or 5 games, whatever I had. But I really enjoyed it. I think Martin Adams embraced it. He had some great results. Mine were very in between, and it just depended on what I was doing that day. But I really enjoyed it, so I didn't have the downtime that most others had, and it kept my arm moving, and you were kind of getting hired to practice for yourself, really. So that ended in about August, but we were having breaks because obviously you couldn't go right through and do 3 months of playing 3 days a week. That wasn't possible. You needed weeks off here and there, and I got those as well. So I didn't actually stop, but I enjoyed what we did.
And away from the darts, if your Wikipedia page is right, you celebrated your 50th birthday during the lockdown. What was that like, hitting 50 during the lockdown? Was there much of a celebration you could do?
Not really. I mean, the lovely thing was my daughter and my wife arranged video messages from people all over the place, and they were from the darts world, and some of them were so much fun. It was, I think we had just under 100 messages, so I was sat in front of the TV for well over an hour and a half watching people giving me messages, and I can't thank them enough. It was a great surprise for your 50th birthday to have so many messages from so many people, and some I was crying with laughter because some of the things they were doing were so funny, and some were just so heartwarming and heartfelt from dear friends of many years, old school friends. It had me in tears. So we had planned to have a big bash in a barn and get a disco and have an outdoor party and sort of make a bit of a go of it, but unfortunately COVID put a stop to that. So we'll have to try and maybe make that my 51st or my 52nd, depends where the COVID's going, because I don't think any of us are sure at the minute.
No, you're definitely right. And back to the darts then, in July we saw the Summer Series, and as I mentioned earlier, you were one of the players to get invited through that Challenge Tour list, and then obviously you played the Autumn Series a couple of weeks ago now over in Germany. What was the experience like for you then, playing in that bubble scenario and playing the 5 days back to back?
Well, initially I was apprehensive, I've got to say. We were at a time there where nobody was really doing anything, and I should never. You should never doubt the PDC, that their organisational skills are second to none. They know the game inside out. They know the way the players are going to react inside out. And I went to Milton Keynes, and it was new for all of us. Some people, it suited some and not others. to be tested and put in your bubble in Milton Keynes was very difficult. I think my COVID test took about 24 or 26 hours to come back. So that was difficult waiting. I was frightened to unpack because although you were there and you were invited, until you'd had a negative test, you kind of I couldn't relax and unpack. So I'm sure each player is different, but I played okay there. I played some good stuff there. Had some good results. Had some results where maybe I could have done a little better, but I think that's the nature of the game over there. The games are so tight that first to six in the best of 11 is very difficult, and you think you've got more time than in a best of five. I used to play in the BDO, but you haven't. It's still that one mistake can cost you the game because of the standard of players. And I managed to win a few games there, and I've not gone over trying to set the world alight. I've gone over trying to prove to myself more than anything that I should be there with the players that are there. And secondly, try to gain respect within that circle of players. There are a lot of egos in there. Some big egos, some little egos, and some have none at all. So it's very difficult. It's all new, and it was all new to all of us to go into playing 5 days on the trot. It's very different than playing one on Saturday and one on Sunday.
And you touched on the BDO there. Obviously, there's been a lot of developments regarding them over the last few months. We know that the UKDA, they've taken over the county game, and yourself, you made your name in the BDO, being a world champion. What have you made of all that's gone on in that side of darts?
It's just so disappointing, really. I mean, we all started there. It was what it was, and it was never trying to be anything superstar-y and what have you. The whole idea of BDO was to to give a chance to a working class guy to be a world champion, and that's what they did, and that's what it was. And it's going to be very difficult to ever see that kind of thing happening again. I'm sure the WDF are going to take the mantle and try and sort of take on from where the BDO have unfortunately failed and left off. I think sometimes the players are forgotten, and I felt that we had started to be forgotten sort of midway through 2019. Really, things have been changing, and your product is only good. Your top players are your top players. That's lovely, but they need the information, and you're expecting them to go onto the stage and perform as best they can. And sometimes we just weren't getting the information. We weren't. I remember, I think the World Dart Trophy in 2019, I think we had about 3 weeks' notice of where the venue was and what it was going to be and where it was going to be. And you had your alarm bells were ringing way before anybody else was thinking of it. The top players. It's a shame because I really do feel that the system worked solely because the way that I was found, I was playing in my little local league in Ringwood and started to be one of the better players in the league, and then all of a sudden you're asked to go to your local Super League team by the Super League captain, and they find you, and then you start getting good in your Super League and showing your worth, and then your county come along and grab you, and it was just a really easy, natural progression. You didn't have to travel miles to be found. You didn't have to travel 2 and 3 hours to enter a certain tournament to be found. If you were good enough in your local league, you were found by those Super League captains and stuff. So I think that's going to be hard to replicate. Although, the UKDA are now taking on the sort of county side of things, which, in my opinion, it was never broke. The BDO, that wasn't the part of the BDO that was broke. So when the Tri-Nations came in saying that they wished to take it on and what have you, I found that a strange move because I thought the BDO was still doing everything really well at the county. So, but we can't keep looking backwards and saying, what if, and this shouldn't have happened and that should have happened, and it's gone, it's done now. And we've just got, for me, I thank my lucky stars that it was there when I needed it. I will be forever thankful to the BDO and the people that ran it over the years that I played in it. although I've been around for the last 10 years on the circuit, 10 or 11 years at qualifying for World Championships, I played right the way through the system from Super Leagues and stuff for over, and county for 20 years, and Super League for 10 years before that. So I'm sad that it's gone, but I'm sure that we will have something, there will be something in place to try and replace it, and I hope that it replaces it with a little more success than the BDO ended, really.
Definitely. Well, let's look ahead then, and we're talking on this Friday afternoon. This time next week, with all things being well, you'll be playing in the Challenge Tour, which resumes in Barnsley. You've got 6 events in 3 days to finish off the Challenge Tour, and we spoke off air before we started this, and you said you've got a few concerns with regards to how these events are going to run. Can you talk us through them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're in a COVID situation, and it's all well and good being in a bubble with the Pro Tour, but the PDC feel that this is safe still to do. So for me, that's kind of happening, and it's going to happen by the looks of things. So Boris is telling us not to move from one area to the other, and the PDC is saying that it's safe to do so. They've got a doctor now within the system, so they're going to ask. I believe they're going to ask people who feel that they've got the symptoms of COVID not to attend. And be honest with themselves, and you've got to trust that as well. The development tour went well last weekend, and there's been very few complaints about anything coming out of the development tour. There's players that I've spoken to that were happy with the way that it worked, and you were put on a table of 6, and every measure was taken. You were wearing masks when you weren't playing. I think the PDC are doing everything within their power to make it as safe as it can possibly be. You can make it as safe as possibly can be, and that's all you can do, I think. But you're watching the telly, and you're being told to do this, and this, and the realism is that life has to go on, and at some point it has to continue on. So I suppose now is the time, and so the PDC feel it's a good time, and so we've got to go with it. And being at the number 1, it would be very difficult to not go. It's going to be very difficult to hold that position over 3 days and 2 comps per day, something that I've never done before. The 5-day Pro Tours were hard, were a hard slog. They were difficult. But to have 3 days with 2 per day, the first Challenge Tour I found really difficult. So I'm hoping that I can have a couple of good runs early doors and settle me a little bit, and then concentrate on playing like I can, because there's a lot of pressure going to be on it, and but it's open for everybody. Because we've only had 4 Challenge Tour events, and we're going to have 6 in now 3 days. It's still wide open to everybody. So I expect the entry to be large and as tough as always.
Yeah, it's going to be a big weekend for a lot of players, yourself included. You mentioned you go in top of that order of merit after those first 4 events, and we all know what's up for grabs. The players that finish in the top 2 get the tour cards. Whoever finishes top gets that spot in the World Championship, but also based on that order of merit, it could get you in the Winter Series coming up as well. So there's a lot to play for, and I guess if we were to chat this time last year and we were to say you're going to go into a weekend and you could potentially get a tour card, would you have believed that was a case for yourself back then?
No, not at all. I mean, even that January was a really disappointing time. I lost in a semi-final at the O2, and then we didn't get paid the money. And then I went to the challenge, the Q School, and averaged brilliantly, and didn't get a card. I think I was in the top 3 or 4 averages a week, but I wasn't one of the lucky ones to get a card. So and I didn't feature in the table, so that was a bit sad. So then you go to the Challenge Tour the following week again. So it was like within 10 or 15 days. It was a lot of darts in 10, 15 days. And to come out on the top of the Challenge Tour, you could have knocked me over with a feather, really, to be honest. It may show a bit of resilience that I have, and I don't know, or stubbornness, whatever you want to call it. So that was really difficult. And now I sort of know what the Pro Tours are about, having been on them. It's lovely to know what you're aiming for, because I know what it's all about now, but it's also the pressure of, I could know what I'm losing if I don't have a good week that weekend. So yeah, it's going to be difficult, but hey, what don't kill you makes you
Definitely. Well, just lastly, really, as I say, we're talking 7 days before Barnsley and the last 6 events. What's the plan really between now and then? Will you be stepping up the practice? Is there anything you're going to be putting in place really to get yourself ready?
I'm not a big practicer anyway, and I think sometimes if you step up the practice, you can put too much emphasis on your game, and then things become unnatural. I find is what happens with me. To be honest, I've not had a throw for about 4 weeks since the autumn series. I've come back, and the end of the year when the grass is growing is a busy time on the farm as well. So I've put up a new barn and all sorts of things in the last 4 weeks. So life has been. I've had a ministry TB test as well, which is your annual TB test where all your cattle have to be tested. So I've had a really busy couple of 4 weeks. I started practicing again 3 nights ago and just doing simple little stuff, 45, 50 minutes, just to make sure your hand-eye contact's still there and coordination and everything else. And it felt good. So we'll have another couple of buzzes of that this week and do a few fun games and fun practice games that I'll just look up on the internet and decide, I fancy doing that one tonight. I don't have a set routine. I don't have a regular thing that I really, really want to do. I just whatever my mood takes me, I go, I fancy doing a doubles thing tonight, or I fancy doing a scoring one tonight, or and I really do it like that, and I don't do it every day. It'll be sort of like every other day probably now. So another 3 or 4 sessions before we go, and I'll feel ready in myself, because I think I sometimes think that if you overdo it, you can feel that you've overdone it in your head as well. But of course, you don't want to underdo it either. So it will be concentrating now for the next few days of making sure I'm ready and feeling that I can do a job when I get there.
Well, Scott, it's always nice to catch up. You appreciate you taking out the time to have a chat with us, and wish you all the best next week in Barnsley. Hope it's a good weekend for yourself.
I hope you make good luck charm, mate. I hope this interview is my good luck charm. That'd be great if it was.
Thanks again to Scott for joining us, and we'll finish up with some picks for the second round. The second round taking place on Thursday and Friday evening. Places in the quarterfinals up for grabs, and we'll go through the draw from top to bottom. We don't know the order of play yet, but we'll start in the top half, and we'll start with the top seed, Michael van Gerwen, against the debutant Devon Peterson. How do you see this first game going?
I said from the start that I thought Van Gerwen would lose in his second match, and I even said that I thought one of the reasons I was picking Ratajski is I thought he would come out firing Van Gerwen, and I was right about that. It was probably the only thing I was right about across the day, because my picks were not that good. Let me take that back. They were terrible for the first day of play, but I did get the Van Gerwen match right. I did hit that one. I thought he'd be playing Jose de Sosa. I thought this would be de Sosa's breakout week, but he didn't do much wrong. Just Devon Peterson did what Devon Peterson's been doing, and that's just been nearly flawless, and it was enough to get over the line against an on-form Jose de Sosa. I think, though, Devon Peterson will keep that going, so I'm going to go Peterson. I said Van Gerwen would lose his second match regardless who it's against. It happens to be against Peterson, so I'll go Peterson to win it 3-1.
Yeah, the problem with Jose was he didn't quite hit enough 180s, did he? 880s he hit in that first round game against Devon Peterson, and I went with Christoph to win that game against Michael, and very nearly came true, just losing out in that deciding leg. It's going to be a tough one to call. I do think this is going to go 5 sets either way. It's going to be the first time these two have met on TV, I believe, since the 2015 UK Open quarterfinals, which was the last time Devon Peterson's played in a TV singles quarterfinals. So it's been 5 years. He's playing probably the best starts of his career right now. But I think I'm going to change my mind. I didn't think Michael van Gerwen would get past the first round, but having seen how he played on the opening night, there was some good signs there, some clutch doubling at some important times. So I'm just going to go 3-2 on this one to the top seed to get through.
I was about to say second match, but as you mentioned, we don't yet know the order of play. So second in the bracket, Mervyn King off his win against James Wade against Simon Whitlock off of ton-plus average against Chris Dobie. How do you see this one?
Very impressive performance from Simon Whitlock, player that we didn't expect to be talking about this week, considering he wasn't in the field. But as we mentioned earlier, the positive test for a couple of the players, Simon getting the call up, and every credit to him really, because Chris Dobie didn't perform well in the game, but Simon certainly did. 101 average in that game, and considering he didn't have a lot of preparation for this event, was very good. Mervyn King as well, I thought played well in his game against James Wade. So again, it's another hard one to call, but if they can carry on the form they're going, I think this one's going to go to Simon Whitlock, and he's going to make another big TV quarterfinal. I'm going with the Wizard to win this one.
I said a few weeks ago on the show when we were asked who has most impressed us since the restart, and I threw out Simon Whitlock, even though he hadn't qualified for the World Grand Prix, because if you go back before the restart, he was not playing well. He was fortunate in many ways to have qualified even for the World Match Play, but he has really come back and played the best darts we've seen from him in a few years. Really, the last time that his career was on the line was before he won those 5 titles in 6 months. Granted, he's not playing as well as he did then, but he picked it up and saved his career then. It seems like he's doing the same here. And yeah, he got a little lucky, but he's taking advantage of that, and I think he'll keep it going. I'll go 3-1 over Mervyn King, and like you, I have the Wizard in the quarterfinals.
Third game to pick then from this top half of the draw, and it is the World Match Play champion Dimitri van den Bergh against Dirk van Duijvenbode. How do you see this game going?
Hard to go against the World Match Play champion after that performance, and he just, he picked up exactly where he left off, and sure, he's injured, but it isn't affecting him. He's figured out how to throw at his best and figure out his stance while being injured. That's out of the way. He's now playing like a major champion, and that's what he is. Dirk van Duijvenbode, okay, beat Mensur Suljovic, but that was not a good match. And Van Duijvenbode has just not been playing as well as he was early in the year. Dimitri van den Bergh's playing every bit as well as he was a few months ago when he lifted his first major title, and has every chance to lift his second here. I think he's going to win it in straight sets.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you on this one, and we both said on the show last week when we were picking those games for the first round, we both went with the seed to get through Michael Smith, and I personally had some doubts about Dimitri with that injury that he's got with his knee at the moment. But as you say, he's proven himself on that stage in that first game, 2-0 win, high 90s average, one of the best performances in the first round. So it looks like he's found a way to cope with that injury, and whenever he gets a chance to go through I think he's got to have surgery on it, it's going to be tough to find a spot during this last few months of 2020. But if he can cope with that injury for the next few months and continue to play at the level that he played at the World Match Play, played in that first round against Michael Smith, then there could be some more big titles heading his way. And like you, I do see him getting through this second round game against Dirk, who, okay, he's got through to his first TV last 16. He probably didn't think he'd do it by averaging 72, but that is what he did in that first round. And I just think it's gonna go straight sets like you. I'm going 3-0 to Dimitri van den Bergh.
In the last match in the top half of the draw, former world champion Gary Anderson going against the former world finalist Danny Noppert. How do you see this one?
I'm going to go with the upset on this one, at least on paper anyway. We've both said about how highly we rate Danny Noppert, and I fancy him to maybe pull off an upset and could arguably be one of the biggest wins of his career, at least in the PDC anyway. He's knocking on the door for a little while, and we look at the averages from the first round. There was 0.1 between them, Gary Anderson and Danny Noppert, and okay, a couple of days later, either of these two could come up and maybe put 4 or 5 points on that average, maybe even more. I know it's a longer format now, so it's going to be more difficult with the double start. But yeah, I've just got a feeling this could be the night for Danny to maybe get that first big win, get through to I think it would be a first Sky quarter final anyway. I know he's been in a couple of finals and a semi-final on TV now, but in terms of these big Sky events that we all look forward to, I think this could be the night for him. So yeah, I'm going to go Danny Noppert to maybe take it 3-1.
So this is the fifth matchup between the two, and they've split the first 4. Gary Anderson got over in a last leg decider in the Grand Slam back in 2016 in their first match on TV. Also beat him their second match on TV last year, in Noppert's first year in the PDC in the World Match Play. But Noppert turned the tides in the World Series finals last year, and they haven't met since then. I was also leaning towards going the upset here, and if you hadn't said on paper at least, I was going to interrupt and ask which way is the upset, because on current form, there's every reason to believe that Danny Noppert should be the favorite, or at the very least, it's a pickup match. But I'll go the other way just to be different. I don't know how this one's going to turn out. It's a lot more to play for Danny Noppert than Gary Anderson, but at the same time, Gary Anderson's defending a lot of money this year, and he's going to have to do it somewhere. He defended a lot of it at the World Match Play, making the finals, but not all of it, because he lost the title. And he'll be defending more money the rest of the year because he didn't win that much last year. This is a big opportunity for him, so I'm going to go, though, for the Flying Scotsman to start to defend his ranking, and this is an event where he can do it. I'll go 3-2 to Gary Anderson.
Let's move into the bottom half of the draw then, and the second round game, which I said the winner of that will win the title. Peter Wright against Glenn Durrant. No, not really. It is Ryan Joyce against Dave Chisnall. How do you see this one going?
Two of the best performances of the first round, and it's a shame that they have to play each other because both of them look like potential winners of this tournament the way they played in the first round. Granted, it's just 2 sets. You only had to win 6 legs, and they only ended up winning 6 legs, so they won it in straight sets. They'll have to do a lot more than that to actually go on and lift the title. But they were both just on fire. I think, though, Chisnall's experience might be a little bit more for Ryan Joyce, a little bit too much for Ryan Joyce. So I'm going to go Chisnall in this match. Of course, Chizzy, he has a good history here. He made the finals just a year ago. He made the finals here as well before. 2 of the many times he's been a runner-up. Maybe he'll go one further when it's all said and done, but he has to get there first. He'll take another step on Friday, 3-1.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Dave Chisnall on this one as well, and we have to give every credit really to both these players. Put in 2 of the top performances so far this week. We've spoken about Ryan Joyce, that unbelievable win that he had against Peter Wright, and now for him really is a case of getting himself back up for this next game, because arguably, okay, I know he got to a World Championship quarterfinal a couple of years ago now, but that was one of the biggest wins of his career and one of the best performances that we've seen from him on TV, at least anyway. And he's been a little bit up and down the last couple of months. Won that title of the Summer Series, which got him into the World Match Play, got him into this World Grand Prix. But after that, he's not set the world alight too much since then. But this, the win that he had against Peter Wright has got to give him a lot of confidence going into this game. I don't think it'll be a 3-0. I think it'll be a 3-1. I think Ryan Joyce will get a set. But given Dave Chisnall's track record in this World Grand Prix and the way he performed in that first game with the 102 average, very close to breaking the World Grand Prix record set from Alan Warren a little way back, a little while ago. I think it was 106, 107. He would have beaten that if he'd have finished the job earlier, but I think he's going to get another quarterfinal under his belt. I'm going to go 3-1 to Dave Chisnall.
Just 3 matches left. Next one, Joe Cullen off his win against Daryl Gurney, the former champion, going against Johnny Clayton, who defeated Ian White in the last set decider. How do you see this one?
I think this one's going to go close. I think this one could be one of the ones that goes 5 sets. Spoke on our preview show last week, and I said that this could be that Johnny Clayton could potentially be one of those players to keep an eye out for. And now that the seed's gone out in his section, he'll probably fancy the job of getting through to the quarterfinals. This was he beat Ian White in the first round tonight, and okay, it was a very tight game. That one a little bit nervy in places, but that's his first win that he's had in the World Grand Prix, so he's got that first win under his belt. Can he go one step further? I do fancy him to do the job against Joe Cullen, who, okay, he done well to beat the handicapper's nightmare, because that was a game that did go back and forth. A great comeback really from Daryl after that awful first set that he had. I do think this one's going to go 5 sets, but I'm just going to go with the man who's probably in a little bit better form at the moment. I'm going to go Johnny Clayton to win it 3-2.
Yeah, I think form might just be the difference here. And, Joe Cullen, very, very good performance in the first round against Daryl Gurney. The best we've seen from Cullen on TV in some time. Johnny Clayton disappeared for a set in the middle there, but other than that, played a very good match. His average does not indicate how well he played, because he basically took a set off. You can afford to take 1 set off in a best of 3 if you play well the other 2. You can afford to take 2 off in a best of 5. But I don't think either of these are going to want to take a set off, because they're good friends. And, it can be tough to play your friend, but you also want to batter your friends sometimes. And for both of them, it's a big match, because both of them have fallen out of the top 16 after being there the last couple years. Johnny Clayton, it's the first time he's ever won a match at either the World Grand Prix or the World Match Play. So he has a chance to really put some ranking money on here. For Joe Cullen, he was on the verge of a final a couple years ago in the World Match Play, but he has never really done well in the World Grand Prix. He's only won 1 match before this year. He's now won his second, but I don't think he'll win his third. I think you said 5 sets. I'll go 4 sets. I'll go Johnny Clayton to win this 3-1.
2 more games to go then, and next up it is the 3rd seed Gerwen Price against Kim Huybrechts. How do you see this game going?
Credit to Kim Huybrechts for getting back into the field. He's been tumbling down the rankings recently, and he played well against Brendan Dolan to fight back in that match when it looked like he was, I'm not going to say dead and buried, but at the very least, the shovel was out. To come back like that and beat an on-song Brendan Dolan was impressive, but he's going to have to do a lot more than that against Gerwen Price, and he's going to have to be a lot more consistent against Gerwen Price, and I just don't think his game is there right now. So I'm going to go the Iceman. He was my pre-tournament tip. He's still my tip, despite struggling against Jermaine Watamena. I think Hybrex will get a set, maybe even the first set, but Price will come back from there and win it 3-1.
I think given what we've seen over these first couple of days and 6 of the 8 seeds going out, I think Gerwen Price in particular will just be happy that he is in this last 16 and he did get through that first round game. And this is, okay, it's going to be a couple of days later. He'll be playing this game against Kim Hybrex, who's got a couple of days to get himself ready, get himself prepared, really get more adjusted to that double start format, because this is one of those events that historically he's not done too well in before. I think he might have got to a quarter-final once, but aside from that, it's been first round and second round exits. Of course, he is one of the top players in the world right now, so this is one of his better chances really to go deep in the event. And yeah, like you, I think he is going to get through to that quarter-final again. Kim Hybrex, as you mentioned, great to see him back involved in these events again. 2019, we didn't see him in the World Match Play or the World Grand Prix. This year, of course, we didn't see him in the World Match Play and just about managed to get himself in the field for this event. So, as I say, good to see him involved again. Good to see him get that win under his belt on TV. But I think it is going to go with the third seed. We are going to get 2 seeds through to that quarter-final stage. So, yeah, I'm going Gerwen Price as well.
And then lastly, we get to the bottom of the draw, Gabriel Clemens going against the other alternate in the field, Jeffrey Desvan. How do you see this one?
I haven't actually picked this one yet because this game did just finish about 5 or 10 minutes ago. It's a difficult one, and both the alternates really getting through to that last 16. Sam Whitlock, who we've spoken about, and Jeffrey Desvan just now coming through in a final set against Jamie Hughes in the final game of the first round. Gabriel Clemens, though, guest on our last show, he's a player that is on the up. He's getting close to that top 32, and I think if he wins this game, he will go top 32, and he'll become the new German number one. He said to me earlier in the week when he was coming over to Coventry, the German number one spot isn't something that he's too bothered about. He's just worried about continuing to progress and getting through to a big quarterfinal. It would be the first time for him getting through to a first big PDC quarterfinal. At least he's a former World Masters semi-finalist, but this is a step up, and I think he'll like the draw. I think he'll like to play Jeffrey Desvan. Again, I could see this one going very close, 4 or 5 sets, but I'm going to go with the man probably in a little bit better form. I think it is close between these two at the moment, but I'm going to go with Gabriel Clemens to take this one 3-1.
Yeah, another tough one there at the bottom of the draw. Jeffrey Desvan's lost this round in each of his first 2 appearances in the World Grand Prix, but at some point he'll have to go further. He's too talented, too good to not at some point make it further. But he has, like you said, he's not as much in form as Gabriel Clemens. Clemens, you can tell that we're just winging this somewhat on this one since we didn't have a chance to even watch this match. So I don't know. I was following the stats, and it looked like Desvan was struggling, or at least early on, but Jamie Hughes was struggling even more. For Gabriel Clemens, though, he's played in 6 or 7 last 16s now in the PDC in majors, still hasn't gotten past one. It's going to stay that way. I'm going to go Jeffrey Desvan. I think the experience in PDC and the TV majors is going to be enough to see him through. I'll go 3-1. Anything else for this week?
Well, just to say, those are our picks for the second round. We should hopefully have a contest with our sponsors Low Six on their app. So do download the app and get involved. If you're 18 plus, UK residents only, T&Cs apply. Please gamble responsibly, begambleaware.org. And we should give a shout out as well to Wadey180, who our picks that we did on Tuesday got 7 out of 7. Of course, one of the games, the 8th game, Adrian Lewis Chris Dobie, didn't actually take place, but of all the other games, 7 out of 7. So spot on for that person. Ourselves, we both got 3 out of 7. So pretty bang average between us. Hopefully we'll do a little bit better on the second round picks. But yeah, as I say, get involved with those contests if you can, and if you fancy having a go, and enjoy the rest of the darts this week, and looking forward to seeing how it plays out over the next few days, both in Coventry and Barnsley. And we'll be back next week to look back at it all.
Yes, indeed. I guess we'll be back to our normal Thursday schedule next week. Although won't be recording it obviously on Thursday. But I hope you all enjoy the remainder of the World Grand Prix. If you'd have a chance to follow the Challenge Tour, hope you enjoy it. We'll of course recap that as well, and we'll look ahead to the last couple European Tour events, European Championships coming up, Grand Slam coming up as well next month. But you'll just have to hang tight till then, because what else can you do but hang tight?